Before Rome became a republic, before its legions conquered the Mediterranean, before senators debated laws and emperors wielded power, there existed a city ruled by kings, a city of legend, myth, and nascent civilization. This was the Rome of the early kings, a time when myth and reality intertwined, shaping the foundations of a city that would one day rule the world. Long before the marble monuments, the Colosseum, and the sprawling forums, the Palatine Hill, Capitoline Hill, and Aventine Hill were home to small settlements, hilltop communities nestled along the fertile plains of the Tiber River. Archaeologists have uncovered remnants of these early villages, revealing stone foundations, pottery shards, and primitive fortifications, dating as far back as the Late Bronze Age. These were humble beginnings, families living in huts made of wood and clay, tending fields of wheat, barley, and legumes, and raising livestock, while navigating the dangers of the wild Italian landscape. Rome's earliest history is intertwined with legend. The city is said to have been founded by Romulus, who became its first king after the dramatic tale of him and his twin brother Remus. But Romulus was only the beginning. Following him, Rome was ruled by a succession of kings, each shaping the city in unique ways. These 7 traditional kings, Romulus, Numa Pompilius, Tullus Hostilius, Ancus Marcius, Tarquinius Priscus, Servius Tullius, and Tarquinius Superbus, were more than mere rulers. They were symbols of Rome's evolving identity, blending myth, governance, and early statecraft. Romulus, the founder, was remembered not only as a warrior, but as a city builder. He is credited with establishing the Roman Senate, a council of elders who would advise him and govern the city alongside him. Under his leadership, Rome's earliest social and political structures began to take shape, defining distinctions between the patricians, the noble families, and the plebeians, the common people. Archaeology supports this differentiation. Remnants of larger, more sophisticated dwellings on the Palatine Hill suggest that certain families enjoyed greater wealth and status, while simpler huts housed ordinary citizens. Romulus's reign also included practical measures to grow the city. Faced with a shortage of women and the need to strengthen Rome's population, he famously invited neighboring tribes to festivals, culminating in the abduction of the Sabine women. While this story reads like legend, it reflects a historical reality. Early Rome was a small city-state struggling to survive and expand, relying on alliances, marriages, and integration with neighboring communities to consolidate power. After Romulus, Numa Pompilius ascended as Rome's second king. Unlike his warrior predecessor, Numa was a man of peace and spirituality. He established religious institutions, codified rituals, and organized the Vestal Virgins, priestesses who tended the sacred fire of Vesta, the goddess of hearth and home. He introduced festivals, ceremonies, and the Roman calendar, many of which influenced civic life for centuries. Archaeological evidence shows the early development of sacred spaces, altars, and temples, indicating that ritual and religion were central to Rome's cohesion. Numa's reforms illustrate how early kings used religion to unify disparate communities, legitimizing their authority through divine sanction. Tullus Hostilius, Rome's third king, contrasted sharply with Numa. A warrior and expansionist, he sought to dominate neighboring cities and tribes. The destruction of Alba Longa, a nearby Latin city, and the integration of its people into Rome demonstrate how military conquest and diplomacy were intertwined even in these early years. Archaeological findings, fortifications, weapons, and evidence of conflict support accounts of Rome's aggressive expansion under Tullus. His reign reminds us that the city's survival was constantly threatened, and that warfare was not only inevitable, but central to Rome's growth. Ancus Marcius, the fourth king, is remembered for bridging the gap between Tullus's militarism and Numa's religious focus. He strengthened Rome's infrastructure, building roads, bridges, and the early port at Ostia, connecting the city to trade routes and the sea. The Tiber River, already a lifeline, became a conduit for commerce and cultural exchange. Excavations along these early routes reveal the beginnings of Roman engineering ingenuity, laying foundations for the complex urban planning that would define the Republican Empire. The influence of the Etruscans becomes particularly significant with Tarquinius Priscus, the fifth king. The Etruscans were a sophisticated civilization to the north of Rome, skilled in metalwork, architecture, and religious rituals. Tarquinius, originally from the Etruscan town of Tarquinii, brought their architectural expertise, constructing Rome's first major temples, drainage systems, and the Circus Maximus. He expanded the city, improved fortifications, and formalized certain political institutions. Archaeology corroborates Etruscan influence, from pottery styles to urban layout, revealing a fusion of local Latin traditions with advanced Etruscan techniques. Through the synthesis, Rome absorbed innovation while retaining its emerging identity. Servius Tullius, the sixth king, further transformed Rome. He is credited with organizing citizens into classes based on wealth, a precursor to later republican structures, and with building the city's first walls, the Servian Wall, protecting Rome from invasion. His reign demonstrates how governance, military preparedness, and urban planning became inseparable. Excavations of early defensive walls along with coins and artifacts suggest a city increasingly conscious of threats and invested in civic order. Servius reforms show that even at this early stage, Rome was a city-state with social hierarchies, political institutions, and urban infrastructure, all laying the groundwork for the Republic. The seventh and final king, Tarquinius Superbus, is remembered for his ambition and tyranny. His reign ended in scandal and rebellion, catalyzing the transition from monarchy to republic. The expulsion of Tarquinius and his family symbolizes the Roman commitment to civic freedom and the rejection of absolute power. Yet even in his excesses, he contributed to Rome's development, building projects, fortifications, and the completion of temples that would endure for centuries. Archaeological evidence of early temples, drainage systems, and ceremonial spaces indicates the tangible legacy of these early rulers. Daily life during this period was a blend of survival, labor, and ritual. Families were extended, with the paterfamilias at the head, controlling property, religious obligations, and justice. Women played essential roles within the household, overseeing domestic work and managing agricultural production. Children learned practical skills from farming to crafts, and early boys received rudimentary martial training in preparation for city defense. Nutrition was based on grains, legumes, olives, and seasonal fruits, supplemented by meat from domesticated animals or hunting. Pottery, cooking implements, and remnants of hearths provide insight into these daily routines, showing how ordinary Romans lived, ate, and worked. Religion permeated every aspect of life. Romans believed the favor of the gods determined success in war, harvest, and governance. Rituals were performed at domestic shrines, communal altars, and temples. Early religious structures, some still visible in ruins, reveal the importance of ceremonial life. Sacred fires, offerings, and festivals reinforced social cohesion, tying citizens to shared beliefs and cultural identity. Myth and ritual were inseparable. Legends of divine ancestry, such as Romulus and Remus, validated kings' authority and instilled a sense of destiny in the populace. The Etruscans' influence on religion was particularly profound. They introduced practices like augury, the interpretation of omens from birds, and sophisticated religious rituals that shaped Roman ceremonial life. Their architectural innovations, such as arches and temple designs, were incorporated into Rome's early urban fabric. By adopting and adapting these elements, Rome developed a unique culture that fused local traditions with advanced techniques from neighboring civilizations. Trade and commerce also began to flourish. The Tiber River allowed goods, raw materials, and cultural ideas to flow into the city. Archaeological evidence of imported pottery, bronze tools, and luxury items from Etruria and beyond indicates a city increasingly connected to the wider Mediterranean. These exchanges fostered economic growth, social stratification, and exposure to ideas that would shape Rome's institutions, religion, and warfare. Early Rome's military organization evolved from small tribal militias into more structured forces under the kings. Warfare was constant, whether defending the city from neighboring tribes or asserting dominance over them. Weapons, armor, and fortifications discovered by archaeologists reveal the practical realities behind the legends. Even as myth dramatized heroic deeds, the material evidence confirms a city constantly preparing for conflict, blending strategy, discipline, and ingenuity. The story of Rome's kings, intertwined with myth, archaeology, and daily life, illustrates a civilization in formation. The blending of myth and history allowed early Romans to create a shared narrative that legitimized authority, reinforced social cohesion, and justified expansion. Each king contributed to the city's identity: Romulus as founder, Numa as spiritual guide, Tullus as warrior, Ancus as builder, Tarquinius Priscus and Servius as reformers, and Tarquinius Superbus as a cautionary tale of tyranny. Imagine walking through early Rome. The Palatine Hill dotted with huts, smoke curling from hearths, priests performing rituals at sacred altars, craftsmen forging bronze tools, soldiers training with spears and shields, children learning farming and trade, merchants arriving from distant villages via the Tiber. The city is alive, a blend of myth, labor, devotion, and ambition. Every stone, every ritual, every wall tells a story of a city finding its place in the world. From the first hilltop settlements to the reign of Tarquinius Superbus, early Rome demonstrates how a small community could evolve into a structured society, capable of governing itself, defending its people, and influencing surrounding regions. It was a city forged in myth, shaped by practical necessity, and enriched by contact with neighboring civilizations like the Etruscans. Archaeology confirms these developments, showing how tangible evidence aligns with legendary narratives, creating a fuller understanding of Rome's early society. The kings of Rome may no longer rule, and much of their story is shrouded in legend, yet their influence endures. They laid the foundations of governance, law, religion, urban planning, and cultural identity. Their reigns demonstrate the delicate interplay between myth and reality, ambition and duty, survival and expansion. Rome's journey from small hilltop settlements to a unified city-state under the king set the stage for the Republic, the Empire, and a civilization whose legacy continues to shape the world. As we gaze upon the ruins of temples, walls, and ancient streets, we glimpse the lives of ordinary Romans, their work, devotion, and resilience. We hear echoes of festivals, rituals, and ceremonies that bound the community together. We see the blending of Latin traditions with Etruscan innovation, and we recognize that even in these earliest days, Rome was a city destined for greatness. The story of Rome before the Republic reminds us that every empire begins as a community, every legend contains a kernel of truth, and every stone holds a fragment of history. From Romulus to Tarquinius Superbus, from myth to archaeology, from hilltop huts to fortified city walls, Rome's early kings shaped a society capable of enduring the centuries. They built the institutions, rituals, and cultural frameworks that would allow a city to grow, thrive, and eventually conquer the Mediterranean. The eternal city's origins are a testament to human ambition, ingenuity, and the power of stories that bridge the gap between myth and history. Rome was not built in a day nor by a single king. It was forged over centuries, in the hills, valleys, and rivers of central Italy, shaped by myth, labor, faith, and innovation. Understanding Rome before the Republic is to witness the birth of civilization itself, a civilization that would leave an indelible mark on the world, from law and politics to architecture, culture, and identity. And it all began with a handful of kings, their subjects, and the timeless stories that connected them to the divine, to one another, and to the city they called Rome.